The mining colony of Vestara Prime had one unbreakable rule: never enter the scorched territories during molt season. Marcus Chen had broken that rule 4 months ago, and somehow he was still breathing. He stood now at the entrance of Ember's canyon nest, his pulse steady despite every instinct screaming at him to run. Behind him, 6 cinderwing hatchlings, each the size of a large dog, covered in rust-red scales with veins of magma glow pulsing beneath, huddled together, clicking their beaks nervously. Before him, 7 Vraxian slavers stood with ion disruptors aimed at his head. "Step aside, human," the lead slaver chittered, her mandibles clacking with amusement. "The hatchlings will serve well in the pit fights. You need not burn for reptiles." Marcus's hands hung loose at his sides. His mining laser sat back at the settlement, surrendered as per the non-aggression pact. All he had was his body, his wits, and the reckless stubbornness that had driven him to xenobiology instead of a safe corporate desk job. "No," he said flatly. The Vraxian commander's antennae twitched. "You are unarmed. We are 7. This is suicidal even by human standards." "Probably," Marcus admitted, shifting his stance. He'd spent months observing cinderwing combat patterns, learning how they balanced, how they struck. He wasn't one of them, but he'd learned their language. "But I made a promise." 4 months ago, Marcus had been surveying mineral deposits near this very nest when a volcanic vent eruption had sealed him inside. He'd expected to die from toxic gas or from Ember herself when she returned. Instead, the massive matriarch had simply watched him for 3 days while he rationed his water and air filters. When she finally moved, she'd used her superheated breath to melt a new exit tunnel, carefully angled so he could escape without burning. An understanding had formed. She allowed him to study her brood from within, learning their complex vocalizations and thermal displays, their intricate social hierarchies, their absolute dedication to protecting their own. And when Ember's mate had been killed by a tunnel collapse, Marcus had stayed to help hunt for the hatchlings. Every evening for 4 months, he'd come to this nest, bringing protein rations, teaching them to track, earning his place in this impossible cross-species bond. The Vraxians wouldn't understand that. To them, cinderwings were commodities. "Last chance, human." Marcus dropped into a crouch, mimicking the pre-strike posture he'd seen Ember use dozens of times. Low center of gravity, weight on the balls of his feet, arms ready. The slavers made that rattling sound that passed for laughter among their kind. The first one scuttled forward, overconfident. Marcus waited until the last possible second, then exploded sideways, using the slaver's momentum against her. His elbow drove into the joint where her thorax met her abdomen as he rolled. Not enough to kill. Vraxian exoskeletons were reinforced, but enough to crack chitin and send her reeling. The second fired, but Marcus had already moved, keeping the first slaver between himself and the ion beam. The shot caught her in the back and she convulsed, screaming. 3 seconds, that's all I bought." The hatchlings whimpered behind him. He could hear them retreating deeper into the nest just as he drilled them. Good, smart hatchlings. Their mother would be proud. The remaining 5 slavers spread out, encircling him. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. He'd studied xenobiology, not military combat. Every move he'd made so far had been stolen from the cinderwings. Instinct and desperation welded together. Impressive, the commander admitted, but pointless. She was right. Marcus knew it. He was one human, barely trained in self-defense, facing professional slavers with military-grade weapons. The math was brutal and unforgiving. But humans had never been good at math when hatchlings, any hatchlings, were in danger. He charged. The slavers hadn't expected that. In their experience, prey fled, not attacked. Marcus grabbed the nearest one's disruptor, wrenching it upward as it discharged. The ion beam carved through the canyon wall, raining superheated rock. He drove his boot into her leg joint, right where Vraxian anatomy placed their primary motor ganglion. She collapsed, twitching. 4 left. Agony erupted across Marcus's ribs as a disruptor butt slammed into his side. He stumbled, went down hard, tasted blood and sulfur. Through swimming vision, he saw segmented legs approaching, saw weapons leveling at his skull. "I'm sorry, little ones, I tried." Then the temperature in the canyon spiked 20 degrees in an instant. The slavers froze. Marcus, flat on the volcanic stone, felt it first, the vibration through rock. Something massive was moving fast. He forced himself to roll aside just as Ember exploded into the canyon entrance. The matriarch Cinderwing stood nearly 4 meters tall when she reared up, her magma veins blazing white-hot with fury. Her roar shook loose stones from the walls, a sound that bypassed consciousness and struck directly at the lizard brain where ancestral prey memories lived. The Vraxian slavers managed 3 shots before Ember was among them. It was over in seconds. Cinderwings were ambush predators built for explosive speed and overwhelming force. Against trained slavers in an enclosed space, one might have struggled. But Ember wasn't just any Cinderwing. She was a matriarch who just found intruders threatening her hatchlings and the strange, furless creature who'd helped raise them. The Vraxians never stood a chance. When silence fell, Marcus pushed himself up on trembling arms. Ember stood among the bodies, breathing hard, her magma veins slowly dimming from enraged white back to their usual warm orange. Ichor splattered her scales, none of it hers. The matriarch turned to him, and for a moment Marcus wondered if instinct would override recognition. He was, after all, the same species as the slavers who'd invaded her nest. Then Ember's massive head lowered, and she pressed her forehead gently against his, the Cinderwing gesture of clutch bond, of family. Behind her, the hatchlings tumbled out from their hiding spot, clicking and climbing over both their mother and their human guardian. Marcus started laughing and couldn't stop, relief and terror and joy mixing into something beyond words. He wrapped his arms around the nearest hatchling, felt its warmth seep into his aching bones. "You took your time," he told Ember breathlessly. The matriarch made a sound somewhere between a rumble and a purr, amusement he'd learned to recognize. She'd been hunting in the eastern lava fields, kilometers away. She'd run the entire distance back when she sensed danger. As Marcus sat surrounded by Cinderwings, his ribs screaming pain and his hands trembling with adrenaline crash, he thought about the colony's rules, about how the galaxy saw humans as useful but fragile, clever but weak. They never understood that human strength wasn't in their bodies. It was in the insane things they'd do for family. Any family, even one with scales and magma glow and claws that could shear through steel plating. Ember curled her massive body around him and the hatchlings, a living fortress of heat and muscle. In the warmth of the nest, as the twin suns set somewhere far above, Marcus Chen, xenobiologist, treaty breaker, and honorary Cinderwing, finally let himself rest. The galaxy would learn eventually. Humans didn't need weapons to be dangerous. They just needed something worth protecting. Subscribe to the channel to catch all our new stories.